You're listening to Childcare Sights and Sounds, presented by Dani Christine Inc., a podcast made for childcare providers by childcare providers. Welcome, everyone, to Childcare Sights and Sounds. I'm Dani.
I'm Gigi.
Thank you so much for coming back and listening to us. I want to say that I already shared this with Gigi in a text message, but we recently got, we have to read them, the review. I said to my listeners that if we get reviews, we'll read them out loud.
Read them. Yes.
Hold on. We got reviews. I'm so excited. Thank you to everyone who has been reviewing, not only on the podcast platforms, but under my YouTube videos, on childcaresites.com, on Instagram. I see you guys, I hear you guys, and we appreciate you. So, On Fire for God 84 gave us a 5-star review, and she said, Dani seems so humble, and that's what drew me to her. She is also very knowledgeable, and I'm hungry for more of the wisdom that she gives about the childcare industry. I also love you and your friend Gigi's relationship. I pray you continue to prosper. Heart emoji, heart emoji.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And to the 2 other people who gave 5-star ratings, we appreciate you. Next time, leave a review also.
Okay. That wasn't enough. I'm glad you guys get a glimpse of what I go through.
We strive for perfection out here. Well, you guys did not come to this episode to listen to us go back and forth. So let me introduce our guest for today, who I'm really excited about, right?
Yes. Beautiful young lady paving the way.
Right. Excelling in the childcare business. Hassanatou is the Director of Parent and Sitter Relations at My Super Sitter, and she's the Chief Operations Officer at NSE Fund, which stands for Nanny Sitter Education Fund. And she is killing it in the babysitting business and offers so many great services and stuff for people that are interested in also getting into the babysitting business. So I would definitely recommend that you check her out, and you can see all of the links to her resources, social media pages, and platforms in the description of this podcast, as well as on YouTube when this podcast gets posted to YouTube. All right, so let's get into it. Thanks for listening, guys. Today we have a special guest, the babysitter guru herself, Hassanatou. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. How's everyone? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm doing well. What about you, Gigi?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to speak to Hassanatou with doing a little research. Welcome.
So speaking of doing research, I've noticed that you have been blowing up on social media and you have all these different features and accomplishments. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I literally just made a year with the Babysitter Guru. It's made a year in April. So there's a lot has been going on since then, and I'm happy that I was able to make that commitment and leap in pursuing my dreams and creating the Babysitter Guru. So a lot of what I do is just based on passion, right? You know, when you have that motivation or just like that tickling feeling like, hey, go ahead and do what you need to do to make sure your dreams come true. So when I first started the Babysitter's Guru, it was actually out of an idea. I started babysitting when I was 16 years old. Wow. I did it in high school to pay off my senior dues because I didn't want to depend on my parents. I'm like, I'm going to be Little Miss Independent and do it on my own. So I babysat throughout high school, leading into college. While I was going to school full-time, I interned part-time, And I was still babysitting on the weekends because the family was like, as long as you're still living in New York, we would want you to babysit for us. So I did that throughout college. That was 4 years straight. And then I graduated. I started my full-time job post-graduation. And I was still babysitting on the weekends. So you know what? It's been roughly 7 years in school babysitting on the weekends. I know I'm passionate about kids. I form a fantastic relationship with the parents to the point where, for example, if I am date night sitting, once I put the kids back to sleep and the parents come, we sit in the living room for like 2 hours just talking about life because they always give me advice because they're older than me. Wow. So I was like, I need to pursue something of my own. That's the whole goal. You want to be able to have your own business where you work for yourself. And that's when the whole idea of the Babysitter Guru came about. I saw there were a lot of resources for nannies, but none for babysitters. And babysitters are the number one short-term option for parents.
Right.
Whereas nannies, there's more of like a bigger investment for it. And you call them when you need them, right? When you have to do like a date night or run an errand. So I want to be that like informational hub or resource for them. They would come and seek advice. So that's when the whole thing with the YouTube channel started, where I could just post videos of me giving any and all advice and be able to respond to them directly. And also I started with some other stuff, and I'm looking forward to kind of talking more in depth about that.
Okay, that all sounds excellent. So you mentioned that you started doing this a year ago. You mentioned something about a year ago. What exactly do you mean? Because I know you said you've been babysitting since you were 16. What exactly did you start a year ago?
The Babysitter Group creating like the actual platform for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's when I started offering the services and doing the YouTube videos, also different brands, and launching the whole social media for it as well.
Did something in particular happen that your light bulb went off and was like, I need to focus on this?
Yeah. So when I was at my full-time job at a nonprofit here in New York City, I'm maybe like halfway in. It was a contracted position for a year. And I was just tired. I loved what I do, but I knew I needed to do something of my own. As they say, once you graduate from college, you enter the real world, right? And I was like, I don't like the real world so far working for corporate. And actually, what really pushed me further was it was a contracted position. So it was a year long, and I was offered to renew it. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm not going to renew it. I'm just going to take that leap and be the voice for sitters and create something that's motivational, and then also something that parents, sitters, brands could just work with one-on-one. And why not? I think this is a perfect time to do it.
Right.
In a world where entrepreneurship and pursuing your dreams is the norm. Mm-hmm. So why not take advantage of it?
Right. Did the nonprofit have anything to do with childcare or children?
Yeah, it's called Reading Partners. Love Reading Partners. Shout out to them. What they do is they focus on literacy for children in grades kindergarten to 4th grade in Title I schools throughout New York City specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what made you decide I know you said you started when you were 16, but what made you decide to become a childcare provider? Like, how did that spark your interest so young?
I always say there's always going to be more children being born. As long as there are children, there's always going to be a need for childcare. That's a never-ending thing. And childcare is scarce here in the U.S. There's always going to be more families looking for childcare than childcare providers here. Right. So why not help them in that process? I feel like it's such an intimidating process to start looking for a childcare provider for your children, right? I always say it takes a village to raise a child, but when you don't have family and friends around you, you need that outside help. Mm-hmm. And that's a very intimidating thing to go through. So yeah.
With that being said, what is your process to get to know new families and children?
Yeah, it's forming that trust and communication. Communication's key. And while you communicate with them, then they'll be able to feel more comfortable in trusting you. So one thing I do is I do like a trial run, for example. It could either be a day if I'm looking to do like a babysitting position, a day or two to just work with the kids one-on-one while the parents is in the home, and then not within the home because, you know, children act differently when their parents are there and when their parents are not there. So that's in regards to parents if I'm looking to babysit for a new family. For sitters, usually we form our, you know, bond or relationships and trust is just through video and them communicating with me. So whenever someone messages me, I always answer within 24 hours. And that's a promise I always keep. So just communicating with them, being able to provide the right advice for them whenever they reach out, and then hopefully, you know, progress that to a phone call where I could just hear their voices and just be able to answer all their questions.
Right. And this is for the families, not or were you speaking about the sitters who look to you for advice?
Oh, for both. So for the families and then for the sitters.
Nice. You mentioned something before about childcare being scarce in the U.S. and you know, feeling that need for families that need childcare. And I think that's an interesting point. I had recently, being that I own a daycare center, as we're looking to expand, had started doing some research into like, where is childcare needed? And I came across a website that kind of had a map of the whole U.S. and showed exactly where the percentage of people are in each state that live in something called the childcare desert. And New York, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is like number 5 in the U.S. for one of the top places where the most places are in New York are childcare deserts. So like 64% of people in New York live in a childcare desert, meaning that there is not a slot in a childcare program for their child. So I think for the listeners that are interested in going into babysitting, but maybe worrying about, you know, will I find a family that needs me? To your point, yes, they should, because there are many families that do not have childcare just because it's not available in, let's say, a center-based or even a home-based setting. But with that being said, with the pandemic that we're currently in, do you have any advice for people who might be interested in stepping into babysitting as like a new method of providing childcare, because, you know, many parents are not comfortable sending their children outside of the home?
Yeah, great question. So currently, because of the pandemic, it does affect how you would be going on your job search for babysitting positions. I say go for it. Things are not going to go back to normal, and that's just the truth. We just have to get used to the new normal, I guess. But childcare is still in demand. Parents eventually are going to be going back to work, or they currently are working from home, and they need the extra set of hands, right? They're used to having the kids in school or daycare for 8 hours out of the day while they're at work working. But now they're in the home, so they need the extra help, especially if they don't have family or friends around them to do so. So the advice I'll give for anybody who's looking to go into sitting is just be cautious, and the way you go for like your interview or to seek families has to be altered a little bit. So for example, families right now, their budget towards childcare might slightly change. So I'm not saying for you to change your hourly rate, but let's just say you're able to compensate like $1 or $2 for them to provide transportation, maybe, right? Because now when you're going inside their home, they might require you to douse yourself down with Lysol or something, or make sure you at least wipe your hands, your up until like your arm or something, or wash up, or make sure you have hand sanitizer on you at all times. As soon as you finish eating, you put it on. Making sure like you take off your shoes and maybe change your socks once you get in, like little stuff like that. So you will have to alter the way you find childcare positions. And then also be very sensitive with families. They might request that you do all this other extra stuff that might have not been there or a requirement prior to the pandemic happening. When it comes to kids, parents are a little protective. So even now with the coronavirus going around, they're even more protective, right? So if they're bringing aside an outside person, just want to make sure that they're following all their rules. Make sure that you're tested prior to looking for a position. There's a lot of testing. I personally live in New York City, so there's a lot of testing centers here where people could just go get tested and get the results within 3 to 5 business days. Also, when you're looking for that, mention like, hey, I recently got tested, here are my results. And then in addition to that, provide your resume, do your on-call interview. Now, when it comes to in-person interview, I always say you have to do a trial one, whether it's like an hour to 30 minutes to an hour. When you're doing that, you also have to be cautious. Make sure before you go in that you sanitize yourself, you wash your hands, you make sure any of the outside clothing that you had on when you came, like for example, if you had a sweater, make sure you take off the sweater right before you go into the house. Or better yet, maybe maybe for the family to offer you like an Uber ride from your home directly to their home so that you're not exposed outside. I know here in New York, there's trains, buses, so you don't want to be on public transportation when you're about to go to an interview with the family. So yeah, little things like that you have to alter, but there's definitely a need, and I wouldn't say for people not to go and look for babysitting positions. They're there, the family need help, and you should go ahead and go for it. Apply for those sitting jobs.
And you're able, with your platform, the Babysitter Guru, for anybody that's interested in stepping into this field, you help people that want to professionally babysit, correct?
Yes. Okay. So I provide coaching services for them.
Okay.
Yeah, coaching. So for example, let's just say you're trying to look for a job, I'll be able to help you throughout that process. And then even once you get hired, right, there's situations that pop up as a babysitter, whether that's communication on pay or payment negotiation, probably like redoing your contract, or if there's a situation that happens between you and the child and you kind of don't know how to communicate that with the parents, I'll help you through that. So there's a little stuff that comes with after you get the position. There's not always rainbows once you get with the family. There's stuff that will come up. So I help with that.
Yeah, that's great that you offer that.
Yeah. Have you ever had a time where you had to, I know you said you do like a trial period. How do you go about if you determine that this family's not a fit for you or the child is not a fit? Like how do you approach parents in that way?
So you should be able to pick up like on the instincts, just the way the child maneuvers around you, or how the child plays with you, or if they immediately gravitate towards you. It doesn't take long for a child to start liking you, right? The trial one, I always say anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour, even 2 hours, you could do it. And you have to do it while the parents are there and then have them not there. So either if they go in their room, because then the child will react differently. If you see that they're a little pushy or they're just crying all the time and they want nothing to do with you, always take that into consideration. Majority of the time, you're going to be with the kid. So if the kid doesn't like you or they're always crying when they see you, even for those 2 hours, that's a warning sign. So I would say take that into consideration. No matter how good the money is, it's not going to work. And in terms of approaching that situation with the family, if the family's in desperate need of someone, you did the trial. Well, you submitted your resume, they saw you in person, they liked you, but the moment you did the trial with the kid and all they did was cry, but the parents still need you, I'll probably revisit the whole, decision and possibly staying with the family, especially when the kid is crying. Maybe what you could do is offer a second time to do a trial one, just to see how they react to you again, maybe a couple of days later. And then if they're reacting the same way, I'll say pass that along and go to another position or apply for another position. But yeah, you're with the kid, not the parent.
So ultimately, the kid makes the final decision.
They sure do. Sure do. I'll say the sign of approval is probably when they drool on you, depending on what age.
They say that's good luck.
That's good luck.
Have you had any funny or any like crazy experiences as a sitter? I mentioned in the first episode of this podcast, Gigi, I don't know if you remember, but I used to be a babysitter for about a year, and I had a child who he was about 2 or 3 years old, if I remember correctly. This was back when I was in high school. And he would constantly be pointing at the corner and telling me that he sees a man. So I told his mom, and his mom was like, yeah, that's just his grandfather. He says it all the time. I know his grandpa's with us. Meanwhile, I'm babysitting him in the middle of the night as a teenager, freaking out during, like, this was when Paranormal Activity was popular. So I'm scared out of my mind. Do you have any like funny stories like that during your babysitting experiences?
Yeah, so I wear my hair differently, and whenever I'm babysitting, so for example, it could be in an afro, it could be like in a bun or a turban that I have right now, it could have box braids, it could have curls, it could be straightened. So they always notice when my hair looks different. They're like intrigued by it. So one time we're just sitting watching The Lion King, and it's a boy who's 2 years old. He just keeps on touching me. He's like, Hassa nice, Hassa nice. He's just touching it, and he touches it all the time. So I changed
made his day.
Yeah. I change my hair either like once a week or once every 2 weeks. And he's like, Hassa nice, Hassa nice. And he just loves touching it. Aww. And I'm like, okay, here, touch your sister's hair. Like, touch your sister's hair. Oh, Hassa nice, Hassa nice. And I just love it. He's Polish and Italian. So I guess, that kind of hair texture compared to theirs, they don't see as common. So they're intrigued by it because it changes all the time.
Right.
You mentioned you're watching The Lion King. Is movies like one of the many things you love to do with kids while babysitting?
Yes. But I try to stay off of TV and electronics, especially now because that's the only thing they do. They're home most of the time, and it's online learning, so they're on the computer a lot, right? Movies, I'll do it like if it's like towards the end of the day, get them a little snack, let's relax on the couch, or if it's right before nap time. If it's right before nap time, so after lunch, right before nap time, then I'll put on a movie just to like slowly ease them into sleeping. But yes, I do like watching movies with them, but I try to stay off any type of TV shows or even the TV in general and their electronics.
Right. Do you have one favorite with the kids, one that's popular with them?
A movie?
Yeah.
Movie.
Like for my daughter right now, it's Frozen. So I
Frozen. Frozen's good. I like the soundtrack for Frozen. Which movie would they like? Well, Monster Inc. Monster Inc. was like when I came out when I was like a little bit younger. So they really don't know about Monster Inc. So we watched it the other day and they were intrigued by it, but they didn't really like it. And I was like, well, that came out when I was younger. Like, no, Hassan. Like, okay.
Sounds familiar.
I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, fine. Stick to your cool movies that just came out on Disney Plus, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. It's always nice to reintroduce, this generation of young children to some of the movies that we were interested in when we were growing up, but they can't all take it. They don't all love them, apparently.
Wow.
What are I like that you asked about the movie watching, Gigi. What are some of the things that you do as a babysitter when you're in the home?
Mm-hmm. So I love baking with them. I love baking. That's just
cookies.
Huh?
I'm gonna guess cookies is the top one.
Cookies, brownies, cake, and what was one of the other things? Like little cupcakes. and that's it. It's like the basic stuff, but I love baking with them.
Nice.
With cooking, no. Cooking, no. But baking, yes. They just love touching, right?
Mhm.
Once they start using their hands, they love it. So what I do usually is I prep everything on the table before I call them over to let's start doing it. So each child will have their like own little corner. So one child will have like a little cup of chocolate chips, and then another child will have like their own like little batter and a bowl and a spoon. And they love that, right? Because then they're independent. They have their own little section and they're the boss of what they're doing. And then I just tell them the instructions and they do it themselves. And then I assist them when they want me to assist them because they're little independent individuals and they want no adult help. So I love baking with them. Another activity is right now, because it's hot outside, they love doing water gun fights outside. And they have a really cool backyard. So we go out there not too long because the sun is out, and I put on the sunscreen for them. But they can't stay out too long because they tend to get like really tanned. And last time they got really tanned. And we just do like water gun fights outside with them. And then also fun arts and crafts. So the one thing I recently did with them is we put rice into those cups. So you know those like dole, like mango cups?
Yeah.
We put them together. We put rice and we just made shakers. Right? We taped it around the shaker. So cool, fun activities like that and baking.
Nice. Do you usually, like during the school year, help them with their homework afterwards, or are there certain things that you would consider the job of like a tutor or a nanny?
Yes. So for babysitting, me particularly, I do not help with homework. Right now I'm helping with homework because it's online learning. But prior to the pandemic happening, I babysit them during the weekends.
Oh, I see.
I babysit them during the weekend. So mostly date nights or just early in the day when the parents have to run, like do an errand run. But for sitters, some of the responsibilities that they can do is also tutoring. That's one of them. Picking them up from school, just making sure that you care for them until mom and dad comes back. Whereas a nanny, it's more of a different role. So for babysitters, you provide supervisory care, right? Make sure that they're safe and they're taken care of until their parents return back. Whereas nannies, it's a coordinated care with parents. In order to like raise their child together. So right. For me, it's like two completely different things. Yeah. For sitters, they're part-time. You call them when you need them. Work for nannies is full-time. They're part of their life. It's an investment.
That's a great way to explain it. That was going to be one of our questions, is to ask what is the difference, in your opinion, between a babysitter and a nanny. But that really simplifies it. The nanny is really there pretty much throughout their whole life, helping to raise them. Whereas a sitter is just like, just when you need me.
Yeah, just when you need them.
Yeah. Did it ever cross your mind to become a nanny? Because I know you love children.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Did it ever cross your mind to maybe becoming a nanny, or did you think about it?
No, I knew I just wanted to be a babysitter, not necessarily a nanny, because I was always doing something in addition to babysitting on the side. So starting from high school, I was a full-time high school student, and then I was babysitting on the side. Even in college, I was a full-time student, intern, and then babysitting on the side. And then when I saw my full-time position, working full-time and then babysitting on the side. So there was never a time that I wanted to be a nanny. I knew I wanted to run my own business, but not specifically do nannying full-time as a career. So it was always babysitting on the side, my side hustle.
What did you study in college?
Yeah, so I got my associates in fashion merchandising and management.
Oh, wow.
Technology. Yeah, total opposite, right?
Yeah.
And then my bachelor's in advertising, marketing, communications.
Wow.
So yeah, whenever I tell people I went to FIT, which is a fashion school here in New York, like, wow, fashion to childcare, I'm like, yeah, it worked out perfectly.
It's great that you have that degree in marketing, though. I think that will definitely help to leverage, and it is certainly helping to leverage your platform with the Babysitter Guru and, you know, getting yourself out there. And it is a great transition into what my next question was going to be, is how would you recommend that people that want to start sitting, or even if they're currently sitting but just want to gain more families to provide services for, what are some ways that they can put themselves out there, whether it be like, you know, signing up with one of your services, or should they go with an agency, or should they do it on their own? Like, what is your recommendation?
I say to first just be able to talk with other babysitters or nannies, depending if you want to be a babysitter or nanny. Just talk to them, right? See what's happening. See, you know, what are some of the things that nannies or students are going through? What are some pointers that they could provide you before taking the leap into finding a job? Because it's a lot, right? You're caring for someone else's children. So anything can happen. Anything can arise. Any situations with parents can happen too. So making sure that you ask all the questions that you need. And then once you do that, just be able that you're vocal too. You can't just be quiet and, you know, expect to get positioned. You have to be vocal about what you want. So whether that means advertising at your local mom and pop shop in your area, or posting your flyers or your business cards at coffee shops, right? Signing up on like care.com or Sitter City. Also, for example, recommendations. Word of mouth gets you far. And childcare, word of mouth gets you far. So making sure that you're able to form those connections, which is why talking to other students and names are important, because if any opportunity comes their way and they're not able to do it because they're currently committed to the family that they have now, they can recommend you. But with a recommendation comes trust. Somebody has to be able to trust you well for them to recommend you to someone else. So yeah, recommendations are good. Go ahead and put those profiles on those websites like care.com and Sitter City. Go ahead and post those flyers and those business cards in those mom and pop coffee shops, even at the rec centers like YMCA or your local supermarket that has like the, you know, community service bulletin boards. You could do that. Even going to a park, a family park, and you see just, you know, parents sitting around like, hey, my name is Hassanatou, and I'm currently offering baby services. Can I give you this flyer just in case you need it? The summer's coming up, you know, but with caution because of what's happening right now. But yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point, that people definitely need to put themselves out there and not be afraid to introduce themselves and state who they are and how they can help you, you know. There was a question I was going to ask you. I completely forgot. But yeah, this was so much great information.
No problem.
Gigi, do you have anything else?
I was going to say if she feels the same way that I feel about Baby Shark, because I'm over that song. I always bring that up to other parents and teachers. What is your intake on Baby Shark?
Oh, wow. So kids I care for, they're over it.
They are, finally?
They're over it. They'll give you that like Hassa. No.
Oh, perfect.
And they're 5 and 2. And when I tell you they have a personality, they're 5 and 2, but going on 15 and 20. It's
well, speaking of that, what's the craziest thing they've ever said to you? Because my daughter's 4, and sometimes I think that I'm talking to someone who's 14 or even older. What's some of the craziest things like that have come out their mouth?
It's mostly with the 2-year-old.
So the youngest ones.
The youngest is always the youngest one. I don't know if they pick up this wording, but I think it's from me. So the mom was telling me one day, she's like, it's so funny because today we were doing something and I told him, if you be good, I'll be able to, you know, give you your favorite candy in the cabinet. And he's like, Hassa, you know, he told me once we finished doing whatever we need to do and it was about time to give him his snack. He's like, Mommy, you know, where's my snack? And she said, oh, okay, wait, hold on, I'm doing something. He's like, that's not what we agreed on. Hassa, I swear to you, I stopped for a second. I'm like, what? I'm like, wait.
He has a point.
He has a point. but a 2-year-old said that's not what we agreed on. And I'm like, that sounds like something else. I swear I thought of you because I don't use those words.
That's so funny.
Businessman in the making.
Yeah, he's a little man. I swear he's a little man. I'm like, I think he picked that up from me. I'm sorry because it's the words that he used. I'm like, listen, that's not what you agreed on. What did I say? And then I think
children are such sponges, and they do that. Remember, Gigi, you tell me all the time that your daughter says things that her teachers say to her at school.
Yeah, it'd be random stuff. I could be home and I'm sitting down. I'll just go like this, and she'll, Mommy, don't touch your face. Remember, and wash your hands. But if I catch her, it's nothing. But she'll tell me I can't touch my face. I need to go wash my hands, and I need to be nice and share. She won't share, but if I'm eating something, I have to share.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, kids are so funny. Yes. They use our own tactics against us when it benefits them.
Yes. Yes, that is true. That is so true.
I remembered what I wanted to ask when we were speaking about marketing. I realized that I'd love to know if there's any like hot time of the year to find families that need babysitters. Like, do you get more business around a specific month or season?
Yeah, summertime.
Summer, okay.
School is closed. Not everyone.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's kind of self-explanatory. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is with date nights is like, since it's all year round, you know, date night is definitely in demand for sure because parents need time for themselves. They need someone to watch the kids. But summertime, because school is closed, not everyone could afford camp, so possibly they hire like a sitter, mostly a sitter, not a nanny specifically, but a sitter during the summertime to either come to the house or drive them around to like the park or to the pool and stuff like that. But yeah, it's the summertime
And how many families do you like provide services for, or would you suggest, like, is there an average number of children that sitters should try to like keep their amount under?
For sitters, it would be 2 children.
Okay.
Two. For nannies, it'll be different. It'll probably be 3. And also depending on the age. Mm-hmm. So if you have a toddler, you know, who's like a 1 to 3-year-old, right? And then like an older kid, like 5, that's fine. But if you have like an infant who's 8 months, and then you also have a 3-year-old and then a 5-year-old, no, that's too much. Do not put too much on your plate because then you're going to get overwhelmed, and that's how accidents happen. Because you're just one person with 3 other little individuals. You know, you can't always oversee everything, and kids are unpredictable too. You don't know what they're going to do. You might be with the 8-month-old at your hip, right? But what's the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old doing? They're probably running around and touching something that you can't see. So yeah, keep it at a minimum of 2. For sitters, 2 children, and then you could have like a mixture of an infant and a toddler. But for example, if you have like 2 infants and you're a sitter, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So don't put too much on your plate just because you feel the need that you have to do it, or if the money is good. Even if the money is good, if you take on the role and then ends up backfiring because you're just getting overwhelmed, and when you get overwhelmed, you're not able to perform your job fully. Mm-hmm. Just be able to be cautious about that. If you have 2 kids, then look at the age group.
Right. And we can end things off with, I'm wondering about how you organize your time as a sitter. I know you have a whole bunch of other things on your plate, but for someone that is just babysitting, is there any special tools or websites or softwares that they can like use to organize themselves and maybe the families that they serve? Like, I use Google Calendar and I block everything on my calendar. Do you have any suggestions?
You actually just said it was Google Calendar for me too.
Okay.
Do you calendar block?
Huh?
So you calendar block?
Yes. A lot. Even I have for this one. So before you sent me the Google invite, I had blocked it already.
Yeah.
I love Google Calendar. You can easily access it, on your phone, on your computer. And then you could send the Google Calendar invite to your family so that they have it. So it's like a reoccurring thing so that
Oh,
they
that's
know.
a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. All right. Well, thank you so much, Hassanatou, for being here. Gigi, do you have any final questions?
No, thank you so much. I wish I stumbled upon you when I needed a date night once upon a time. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Is there anything that you would like to share, or how can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Babysitter Guru, and then also my personal LinkedIn page, which is Hassanatou Barry, and I'm always there posting video and informational content for parents, and then the YouTube would be informational content for my sitters, and then Instagram and Facebook. It's just I interact with everyone on those.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on all of your recent successes. I'm so proud of you, and I love watching all of your posts and everything that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Have a great day and a great weekend.
As well. Bye.
Bye-bye.